So how's everybody doing this evening?
Good.
Good. Nice. Braved that rain. Yeah, so that's good. And have any of you ever heard of the Southern Vermont Natural History Museum before?
No, I don't.
A couple folks, but mostly no. Yeah, that's all right. You know, we're down in West Marlborough, Vermont. That's kind of near Wilmington, Mount Snow area.
It's up on the side of the mountain.
You got it. Right at the scenic overlook. If you're familiar with Route 9 at all, there's that big scenic overlook, and that's where the museum is. And as I describe the museum, people who are familiar with that place but don't know about the museum tend to get this confused look on their face as they're trying to picture where do you put that thing. Because for the most part, we're an old school natural history museum. It's founded on a historic collection of about 600 taxidermied mounts that are almost all animals native to the northeastern U.S. It's actually the largest collection of native birds and mammals in the Northeast. The largest collection, well, I'm sorry, it's the largest in Vermont, the third largest in the Northeast. Yale and Harvard have more than we do, which that's okay. We'll be third to Yale and Harvard. That's fine. And another thing, the reason folks who are trying to think, well, where do you put something that size, is we're built on a scenic overlook. So the slope's about like that. The bottom of that 3-story building is down here. So you can only see the top floor of the building. And it just looks like this little white building. Now, not everybody is all that interested in the old school Natural History Museum anymore. So over the years, we've added other exhibits. Probably the most popular are the live animals. And it was kind of neat when Claire called and asked to do a program about foxes. So, well, we don't have live foxes. Nobody ever wants us to talk about things we don't have live ones of. It's always snakes and owls and stuff like that. So yeah, we were game, and we thought let's talk about foxes tonight. We're gonna kind of lay it out just to make sure we're kind of all on the same page. Do a little bit of natural history stuff. I believe some of you folks were interested in how foxes and your chickens might get along. Talk about that a bit, you know. It doesn't have to all be me talking at you. We can be conversational here.
Old song, Fox Went Out on a Chilly Night.
I can't sing it for you, but yeah, I recall that song. Yeah, Fox Went Out on a Chilly Night. Anybody want to hum a few bars?
Fox
No?
went out on a chilly night. He prayed to the moon to give him light. He many a mile to go that night before he reached the town, etc., etc.
Come on. No? All right. There's always one in every crowd that's willing to sing. So, I mean, just, I guess, basic natural history stuff. Foxes are part of the dog family, right? They're the smallest members of the dog family. The littlest foxes over in Africa, little fennec foxes, they only weigh about 3 pounds. And there's about 37, 38 different kinds of foxes if you don't count the like 20 different kinds of red fox we have. You know, if you just go species in the world. In Vermont we have 2. The red fox and the gray fox. And there is a little bit of dispute on our red fox on whether or not they're really our red foxes. When the settlers got here from Europe, the English settlers especially, big fans of fox hunting, and they did not like the gray fox at all. We'll talk about why a little later on. So they brought in their own red foxes. So there's this school of thought that we didn't actually have red foxes in this part of the country when the settlers got here from Europe. DNA testing says that now our red foxes do have North American red fox blood in them. And the thought is that as we change the habitat here, western and northern red foxes came to the Northeast and then mixed with those European red foxes who were able to escape the fox hunters. Not a huge taste for fox hunting in the U.S. anymore. You don't see a lot of that. But there was a time when it was popular. I'm talking like on the horses kind of fox hunting. These little guys are also among the most omnivorous dogs in that they don't only eat meat. And anybody who has a lab knows dogs eat more than just meat, right? We had a chocolate lab that ate zucchini out of the garden. Was very. Some years it was annoying. Some years it was like, thank you for eating the zucchini. And so you'll see foxes in your apple trees. You'll see them eating berries off the bushes in addition to meat. Our red and gray foxes, so far as how the year goes for them,
Turn the light off.
Oh, yeah, great, thank you. So far as how the year goes for them is about the same, red fox and gray fox. Their life history is real similar. Right now, Mr. and Mrs. Fox have gotten back together. They pretty much stay together year round, but now they're thinking about this year's kids. Pretty soon they're going to be breeding. They're going to den up, and that might be like an old woodchuck burrow. Mom might dig her own burrow. She might move in under your back porch. I mean, really any place with any kind of shelter where they're going to be able to keep those pups safe. And around April, they're going to be born. So it takes her about 2 months. She's going to be pregnant for about 2 months. This is actually a really neat time to go out and track foxes because you find them traveling in pairs. You know, and Mr. and Mrs. Fox are just walking around together, and you see their tracks all over the place, 2 by 2. Because this is, you know, that time of year. And we also see kind of some neat stuff, especially with the red foxes. You know, foxes don't travel in big packs like wolves. They're pretty much pairs or solitary. Sometimes, though, you'll see a pup will stay with mom and dad and help next year. She or he will help raise the pups next year. Usually by August, they're starting to head out on their own. You might see like brothers and sisters working together a little bit, like end of the summer and the fall, but pretty much they head out on their own. Let's look at that diet a little more, because that's going to be we're going to try to get you guys to talk here in a minute. But really, a fox's menu, anything it can catch, pretty much. You know, they're going to eat.
Sorry to interrupt. We got an alarm call from here. Just want to make sure everything's all set.
It was Pete. It's gonna be some good TV. All right. So yeah, we got a lot of pictures up there just to give like a representation of the kind of things they're going to eat. They're best adapted for small mammals. It's like little rabbits, mice, chipmunks, squirrels, rats, stuff like that. They eat a lot of voles. But I mean, they're not against sneaking up on the back porch and eating that cat food you left out there. Maybe that cat even. Yeah, boy, you know, you put the cat out there in the food chain, they're not the top, you know, they're like down there. And that kind of, you know, we're talking about food that really brings immediately the human interaction piece with foxes. And really with predators in general. You know, you think of meat-eating animals, a lot of times, you know, like we do programs like this with kids. I'll say, what's your favorite animal, kids? And half of them are talking about predators, you know, wolves, bears, lions, I love sharks. But in our day-to-day life, we don't always love them so much, especially if we have animals of our own that are out there and fall into those prey categories. Do any of you guys have chickens?
Excuse me.
No? Wow. I thought we were going to talk about chickens.
Well, I know
Yeah, all right.
sometimes neighbors have, but
So, I mean, foxes are kind of famous for eating chickens, aren't they? We have expressions in our culture, fox in a hen house, right? About that. And you guys probably don't care how to protect your chickens from foxes then, do you? Huh.
I might.
Well, let's move on.
decide to get a chicken.
Although you really should get chickens, actually. I mean, when a few years ago, my wife wanted to get chickens, and I was not on board at all. But the wife and the 2 daughters were like, we're going to get chickens. So we got chickens. I built a chicken house. And we got the cute little baby chickens, and they were cute. And then just didn't do anything but eat. And they got bigger and they got bigger and they didn't do anything but eat. And they got bigger and they got bigger and it's fall and they haven't done anything but eat. And I'm really like no longer on board with the chickens at all. And then it was pointed out that they're excellent composters. So then that was okay. Grass clippings, table scraps, they're going to turn those into compost, I guess. And then they started turning them into eggs. And that's kind of neat when they're growing eggs. And all along, everybody who's talking about chickens with us, they're like, well, you're out in the middle of the woods. How many chickens have you lost? And we hadn't lost any. Snow came, Fisher tracks going by, coyote. We had 2 different kinds of foxes on the game cam behind the house. Never lost a chicken. Next year, chickens are fine. Neighbor across the road, chicken gets killed by a fox. Another chicken gets killed by a fox. And we're like, well, what's the difference? And we figured there were two main differences. One, we made sure our chickens were locked up at night, which they kind of want to do anyway. They're like, oh, we'll go in there, it seems safer. And we had dogs who didn't eat the chickens, which is key. You know, now we have a dog that wants to eat the chickens. It makes it much more challenging. But we had a shepherd who loved the chickens. And she'd just hang out in the backyard with the chickens. She'd steal some of their food. The chickens would fall asleep on top of her. And we never had a fox in the backyard. Now we've moved to a new house and we're seeing the exact same thing. Our neighbor across the street had a fox in broad daylight, had one of her chickens in his mouth. She came out of the house, wah! And the fox looked at her, took her chicken off into the woods. We had a fox walk across the bottom of the yard, but we've not had a chicken disappear yet. And we let them run loose all day. So, you know, it's kind of interesting because a lot of times we think we need to protect our livestock, whether it's chicken or sheep or whatever. The way to do it is to shoot the predator, get rid of the predator. There's other ways. And the thing with dogs, that whole dog family, especially here in Vermont. What do we have for our wild canids in Vermont? Coyotes, yeah. He's the coyotes and our two foxes. These are territorial animals. The reason they don't want to come into the backyard with my dog is because my dog is another member of the dog family. And they lay out their territory. Now, it's not to say a fox will never come into the yard with the dog. My neighbor across the road now, she has little dogs. Cute little dogs. She takes them out twice a day. They go to the bathroom in the exact same spot. She brings them back into her house. Our dogs run the perimeter. So the fox hits that perimeter and goes, oh, somebody else lives here. Over there, he's like, oh, somebody peed over there. I'm going to go over here where the chickens are. And if we say we take those foxes out, or someone with a coyote, coyotes aren't as worried about dogs as the foxes are. They're going to be gone, and the next year somebody else is going to move in. Because we have a really healthy population of red and gray foxes. Gray fox is better in the southern, say, 2/3 of the state than the northern 2/3, but any place the habitat is good for them, and coyotes are everywhere. How many of you guys have coyotes around? Everybody raise your hand. You do. They're everywhere. Yeah, coyotes are everywhere. We might not see them because our eastern coyotes are smart. And they know we're really dangerous. So they're not as noisy as western coyotes. They're not as obvious as western coyotes. And when we take out a predator who's not messing with our animals, we're opening the door for the next one to come in who might want to mess with our animals. That would have gone much more interestingly if you guys had chickens and stories. So let's move on. We also, of course, fur trade is really big for foxes. A lot of the fur trade foxes are farm raised now. You know, we think farm, it's not like a meadow with foxes. Good, it's industrial fur production. Anybody want to talk or ask questions? You're welcome to do that. All right, we'll jump right into this thing then, because this is neat. The guy has a fox on his shoulder. What's that all about? Back in the 50s, there was this Russian fur farm. And there was a scientist there, a geneticist, who was kind of using the fur foxes as his study animals for whatever he was studying. And he noticed that the workers in the fur farm were selecting their breeding foxes, you know, the foxes that didn't become coats but had baby foxes, by behavior. Which kind of makes sense if you think about it. You got to clean the fox cage. This one wants to bite you and scratch at you, and it's your constant battle. That one gets to be a coat. Right? You don't want to deal with that fox. The nice fox that maybe just kind of is quiet and doesn't try to bite you, oh cool, we like this one, we'll keep this one around. Maybe even started like they were doing her a favor, I don't know. But the scientist who was there noticed it and he got really interested. Can you breed for behavior? And he started this whole project of trying to make a friendly fox. So they picked the foxes who were most dog-like, most comfortable with people. They bred them. And then that's when the weird thing happened. They started to see the behaviors they wanted. You know, the foxes were more comfortable with people. They weren't as aggressive. And other things started to happen. Their ears started to flop down. They started to develop spotted coats and weird colored fur. Their tails started to curl. Think of what other member of the dog family has floppy ears, curly tails, and spots?
Bugs.
Yeah, domestic dogs. If we were doing a wolf program, I'd be telling you that's how you can tell a wolf apart from a dog, by those exact traits. So then it opened up this whole other thing. Well, wait a minute. Is behavior tied to appearance? Are there traits in common? You know, how does this whole DNA machinery, how is this working? Eventually, you know, he published his papers, and some other clever person saw a money-making opportunity because now they had friendly foxes. And they started backbreeding those foxes to keep the friendly, but get them looking like that. So starting like the 1980s or so, they started to commercially produce pet foxes. So whereas our domestic dogs came from wolves probably 15,000 some odd years ago, probably a little bit the wolf's idea, a little bit our idea to get it all started off. With these foxes, it's very deliberate. You know, somebody said, hey, we want a friendly animal that can live in our houses and be like a pet that looks like a wild fox.
What do you mean by backbreeding?
Oh, they took their friendly foxes who looked the most like regular foxes, and they got to breed. And the ones with the spots and the droopy ears, I don't know what they did with them, but they didn't get to be part of the program anymore. And you know, a lot of times, you know, when I first heard about this, I immediately pictured like a little dog. But foxes are different from their doggy relatives, and I've gotten myself off track with this. It's not going to be good TV, guys, sorry. So we're going to jump ahead to the gray fox for a second. Okay, jumping ahead to our gray fox. We'll go back to the red fox, because the gray fox is unique to North America, and it's a great example of, probably the best example of that similarity between foxes and cats. We've got, the gray fox is sometimes called the tree fox. And actually, I just learned the flying fox, it's called too, apparently, although I have never heard this. I saw it in writing once, and no, it doesn't make sense to you guys. So the gray fox has partially retractable claws, like a cat. Cat better at it than the gray fox. So they can go up a tree. Any of you ever see, I mean, I know you've seen gray foxes in the wild. Yeah, but never up a tree. Anybody encounter that? Yeah.
Apple trees.
Yeah, like up an apple tree? Yeah. Were they gray or red fox?
Gray.
Yeah, nice. They're better at it than any other member of the dog family. Now our red foxes, they can go up trees a little bit, like probably at most of your apple trees. Jack Russell can get up into it, and probably a red fox could. But you'll get gray foxes denning in hollow trees. Their den will be up 20 feet off the ground in some big hollow. Their build is also a little different. You know, when we look at the skulls of red versus gray foxes, so this was probably a smaller fox overall, but the proportions of the gray fox, they have a shorter snout than the red fox. The red fox has a longer, kind of heavier head than the gray fox. Kind of more like a cat, has a shorter snout, right? And actually, can we do a little nature nerd thing real quick here, since I'm holding these two skulls in my hand? So the Latin name for gray fox is Urocyon. Not important, except for that U in the beginning. The red fox is Vulpes with a V. Look at their skulls. You see that? That mark in the skull? There's a U right here in the gray fox, Urocyon. There's a V in the red fox, Vulpes. Isn't that weird? Good little nature nerd thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Maybe someday it'll turn up on a trivia game or something. You'll be all set. And part of that is, you know, they look at the fossils and they think that the foxes as a group broke off from the other dogs about 10 million years ago. And around the same time, the gray fox broke off from the rest of the foxes. And they kind of all headed for cats, and just this guy somehow got on a fast track. They're moving there a little more directly.
Interesting. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. And we'll make sure everybody has a chance to check these artifacts out if you're interested in that. So the differences with foxes and other dogs, I mean, really, it goes even right down to the eyes. We have a wolf, a dog, and a fox here. Mm-hmm. Which of these things are not like the other? You guys remember that? Yeah. So that fox, what's different about his eyes? Slit pupils. Yeah, like a cat. Go home and look at your dog. Round pupils. The same for the rest of the dog family. So now we're going to jump back because we kind of skipped the red fox there. There we go. Now this guy is the fox, right? Most of us say fox, and this is the fox we think of. I know this is the fox that was on the posters. Yeah, the good old red fox. It's one of the most wide-ranging land carnivores in the world. You find them throughout the entire northern hemisphere. In Australia, they're all over the world, and they're really, I mean, in many ways, they're your typical fox. Compared to the gray fox, a little bit longer legs, great big ears, pointy nose, that big bushy tail. I should point out too, the way to tell red and gray foxes apart, probably the best way to tell, is that tail. You know, the red fox isn't always red. Yeah. A lot of times they have some gray in them, sometimes they're black. Silver. They'll be blonde, silver fox, yeah, absolutely. Some will be red and gray and black. They tend to call those cross foxes. But you look at the tail, and the tip of that tail on a red fox will always be white. The gray fox will always be black.
How about that?
You just got to see the tip of that tail. Coyote will mess you up because they have the tip of the tail. So if the coyote is black too. So possible if the scale is off that coyote might confuse you with a gray fox. But if the scale is good, there's a coyote. Now that's a good size eastern coyote. You get out west, they don't grow them that big out there. Part of that is our coyotes here in the east aren't pure coyotes. They have some wolf in them, they have a little bit of dog in them. They're a different animal and a different program. So we won't move on beyond to say they're quite a bit bigger. You guys want to feel these? Yeah, you do. It's okay. Yeah, here, we'll just pass them around.
Weight of a gray.
Thank you. The typical size, I mean, they're basically the same as a big house cat. Typically, you're looking at around 15 pounds or so. And then the gray fox, a little smaller. Although the record breaker red foxes are close to 30 pounds. I mean, there's some big red foxes out there. Gray foxes usually not. You know, they don't get much over 15 pounds. The boys are bigger than the girls. So you see a big fox, it's pretty likely a female. And then sometimes you get really tiny, or a big one's probably a male. You get some really tiny ones. You might have a 5-pound fox, little gray fox out there.
Speaking of weight, what is that enormous creature behind you?
Oh, the enormous creature? I had it in the car, so I brought it in. This is a Canadian gray wolf.
I had no idea they got that big.
And this was probably a big wolf too. I mean, typically wolves, a male wolf will be somewhere around 100 pounds is a big wolf. I worked at a wolf center where we had a 130-pound wolf who was not much bigger than this guy. So this was over a 100-pound wolf probably.
Wow.
And this came from, someone shot this wolf up in Canada, they got the hide processed, and when they tried to bring it back to the US, they did something wrong. We don't know what it is. It might have been poaching, it might have been paperwork. I think more likely paperwork, you know, since so much was done with that.
That is a nice one. That is
Yeah.
really.
Isn't that nice? Yeah.
So that's how you ended up with it?
That's how we ended up with the wolf, yeah. Actually, these other furs were just donated to us by another nature center over in Bennington. So, sir.
We used to see a fox, we called it cross fox.
Yeah.
Is that actually a cross, or is it a color variant?
It's a color variant on a red fox, yeah. Like kind of dark in
Yeah,
back, or dark on one end and red on the other end, right? Yeah.
it's a color variant.
Yeah, it's a color variant on those red foxes, yeah.
What do you do with the pelts?
What do we do with them?
I mean, why do people?
Oh, why do people trap them? It's fur trade, actually. I mean, they trap them and sell the furs.
Bad.
Well, yeah. There aren't as many there aren't as many trappers as there used to be. Yeah, there just isn't the market for it that there once was.
Where is the market?
People buying fur coats. There's still people who buy fur coats.
I know.
Sure. No, really. If you Google fox fur, it's all ads for fur coats.
No kidding.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
just bring up, I have a surplus, Army surplus sleeping bag, came from the Korean War,
Uh-huh.
that's got fur. It was,
Yeah.
It was a casualty bag
Uh-huh.
designed to put somebody in that was busted up, so it's huge, but
Oh, wow.
had a fur-lined collar.
Yep. Wait, boy, I don't know why you'd want it in Korea. I mean, that seems awful hot for have a fur coat on there.
Wintertime.
But yeah, it's we think of like this time of year, we're thinking about what's your best warm weather gear, right? And you do run into all kinds of political issues and strong feelings about this. But most of what we're trying to do with our synthetics is replicate natural materials. You know, it's as warm as wool, even when wet, right? Wool, you know.
Don't you really think the value of furs is very closely aligned to the women of this country, the ones who buy fur coats?
Now I'm thinking I'm not even going to touch that at all. For many reasons. One reason, I don't have a good answer for that. The other reason, I'm not going to touch that. Although I notice most of the fur coats I see nowadays are celebrities, like men and women are wearing them. Yeah. Oh yeah.
What about the Arctic fox?
Yeah. The Arctic fox is its own fox. You know, we don't have them here. They're kind of part of that same branch of the family tree as the red fox. And they're very adapted for cold. You know, so the big ears of a fox, they're great for listening. They're great in hot weather because you can shed heat real well, like radiators, which you don't want if you live in the Arctic. So Arctic fox have little short, round ears. They have shorter snouts. They have short little stubby legs, all of it just to conserve heat. And they love the BBC for some reason. You watch any of those nature shows, they're always like, the BBC always gets those Arctic foxes doing all kinds of neat things. Yeah, obviously we don't have them here, so yeah.
How many foxes are there in the state?
I knew someone was going to ask that, so I searched for the answer. I could not find even an estimate. So what I ran across time and time again is that Vermont had a very healthy fox population, but no idea what the numbers are. The red fox actually have had some challenges in, like, say, the last 100, in the last 50 years. They're more of an edge species. So as forests come in, it's not good fox habitat. You know, they want to live, they love farmland, you know, they like the broken forest field. And then when the coyotes got here in the 40s, that was bad news for the foxes because they're all dog family, right? They don't get along. So the coyote will beat up or kill a red fox if he can catch it. Kill a gray fox too. But the gray fox has a little advantage over the red fox. Climbs trees. Yeah. Gray fox goes up the tree, the coyote's out of luck. The red fox can't do that.
Do you have any idea how, what the percentage is between gray foxes and red foxes in the state?
No, you should have had Fish and Wildlife do this one. No, I don't know.
More?
Yeah. Oh, which do we have more of?
Yeah.
In the southern half of the state, apparently gray foxes, and in the northern half, red foxes. It's probably as you go north and you get, you know, really harder winters and the climate gets less appealing for those gray foxes. More evergreen forests. They prefer the hardwoods or mixed hardwoods. So again, I mean, really, with just about everything, it comes back to habitat. You know, are they going to have some place to live where they want to live?
When I was a kid, we would hear fox bark every now and then.
Yeah.
At least that's what our parents said.
Was it a horrible, awful sound?
It seems to be, but I wish I could imitate it. Can you imitate it?
No. You know what we'll do though, and I suspect we will have time. I've loaded up some recordings. We'll play some. Yeah.
Good.
We'll play some crazy foxes. Foxes make some crazy sounds. Y'all remember that song? What's the fox say? No? All right, never mind. We'll move on. So, you know, it's with these foxes, especially the red fox, because they are around us and they have been around us all over the world. We see them as part of our culture. You know, I mean, sly as a fox, right? Foxy lady. All these fox things come into our language and our stories too. Whether that's, you know, an Aesop's fable. Do you know that one? The Fox and the Crow? That's a good one. Chicken Little, Disney movie. Japanese have these crazy fox spirits that protect rice and murder people for no reason, you know, and they're all like these tricksters, kind of trickster characters. Which I don't know. You see an animal like that that fits itself into all these different levels of our culture, it kind of makes it more interesting to me. You know, there's more depth to it. Anyway, so well, you guys want Aesop's fable? You're a very quiet audience. I'd like to say, you're all thinking about that drive home, is what it is. So, we don't often get to see a fox up close, but they are around. And a great way to find out those foxes are around is to go out this time of year. Maybe we'll get snow again, so go out after it snows again, and look for their tracks. See kind of, well, let's see if we can. Yeah, you got it, sir. With our wild dogs, their back foot lands in the print their front foot left. So they're stepping in the same tracks. I don't know if you can see it on that left side slide. You can see that kind of dotted line of tracks going off into the bushes. But this is, you know, really a great way actually to tell it apart from domestic dogs. Because domestic dogs aren't built the same way as wild dogs. You know, our wild canids have really narrow chests, so those back feet and front feet line up. Think about an English bulldog, right? There's no way those feet are lining up. And to varying extent, our domestic dogs are all like that. We had a mutt once that her feet lined up perfect. Her feet were about the same size as a coyote's too. So I'd come out in the yard some mornings and go, we had a coyote in the, oh, it's you, you know, because it was, they lined right up perfect. But usually that's not the case with dogs. Again, they come in so many different shapes and sizes. So that's a great way to recognize them. Also, think of when you see a dog out in the woods, they are checking everything out, right? They're zigzagging all over the place. Or if you've got a good dog, it's following you. So that's going to be another sign. The wild dogs, they don't have extra energy to waste. They can't run in circles and chase chickadees and things because every ounce of food they get goes to keeping their bodies warm. And if they're wasting energy, they might die. You know, a domestic dog, who cares? Let's run around in the woods all day long, go home, have a nice big bowl of Alpo, lay down in front of the fire. The foxes and the coyotes, the wild dogs out there don't have that. We did the coyote already. There's a pretty coyote though. And another animal that we sometimes confuse the fox tracks with are the cats, like the bobcat. You know, right away we look at this picture, we see the claw marks, right? Dogs have those claws. Sometimes they're hard to see on the gray fox. And, you know, sometimes you see something that looks like claw marks on the cat. They have claws too. So claws are great, but really there's a better way to tell the dog family from the cat family. You can draw an X through the middle of their tracks on the dogs without hitting any toes. You can't do it with the cats. You look at the way your fingers line up. That's how cat toes line up. They're different lengths. The dogs, there's symmetry. Their two middle toes are pretty much the same length. Their two outer toes are pretty much the same length. And actually, you'll sometimes find an old track where it's just, you know, that melted oval in the snow, and there'll be a raised X in the middle of it. that'll stay. Even when you can't really see the toes clearly, you'll still see that raised X. So that's a good way to know you're looking at least at a wild dog of some sort. Telling the coyote from the red fox can be kind of hard sometimes. So one of these is a red fox, the other one's a coyote. Now they were in different, you can tell how the toes spread apart more on this guy, so they were walking in something different. But they're pretty close to the same size. General rule, over 2 inches, probably a coyote, under 2 inches, probably a red fox or a gray fox. But it can get tricky sometimes to tell who's who out there. And a lot of times the gray fox tracks, like if I think for a second it might be a cat, it's probably a gray fox. Because they do have rounder feet, a little more like a cat. That's not a definite way to tell them apart by any means. Don't say, well, the museum guy told me. If I think it's a cat, then it was really a gray fox. But it's kind of, they're just more cat-like in so many ways. Even the footprints, they're just a little more like that cat shape. And of course, if it goes up a tree, there you go. That's why the best thing to do when you find a track, any kind of track, is to follow it. Follow it around. I mean, who knows what you might see. Maybe you'll find where it left a little message for another fox. And if it's a fox and you see where they peed, that's the best thing, because now you can definitely tell if it's a red or a gray fox. These kids are all doing it to see what kind of fox lives in this den. So that one in the pink coat right in the middle there. See where she's got her face shoved down in that hole down in the den? She's sniffing. Yeah, do any of you know this trick? If it smells like a skunk, it's a red fox. If it just smells like pee, it's a gray fox. But that red fox, it smells like skunk when you smell that urine. So in this den just stank of skunk. You didn't even have to stick your head down there to smell it. To the point that we were kind of speculating, maybe there's actually a skunk down there and not a fox. But I love it when kids will stick their head inside the fox den. That's great. I love that.
The fox in that den when they were sticking their head in?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she was in there. This was actually right behind the Twin Valley Elementary School down in Wilmington, and this was up on a hill behind the school, and the first grade classrooms could look out the window, and when the pups started to explore out of the den, they could watch the pups would come out and they would play all on the hillside, and the fox would switch every other year. There would be a woodchuck one year, and the next year the fox would be in there. And the next year there'd be a woodchuck, and the next year there'd be a fox. It was pretty cool.
They're not natural enemies?
Oh yeah, yeah. The red fox will kill a woodchuck if it can. Yeah, yeah. And I'm not sure how that possession, how they traded off there. A lot of times too, and in this case there was another den on the other side of the hill away from the school, which was probably the same fox. A lot of times they'll have multiple dens. They might move the pups like during the course of the year, especially if you've got a bunch of kids sticking their heads in the den. Although these guys didn't seem to care that much about the kids. As far as we could tell, the kids never chased the foxes out of there once they were there. But issue they do have are fleas and parasites and things like that. So they'll spend a year in this den, and the next year they'll go around the hill and use the other den. And that gives you a chance to clear the bugs out. That is actually one of the biggest problems wild animals have, are parasites. And foxes are famous for some of the diseases they can get. Mange, rabies, any disease your dog can get. They can get distemper. And it tends to come in cycles. You'll have a year where, every other day there's a story on the news about a rabid fox. This past summer, there were, down in southern Vermont, there were a couple rabid foxes.
Now, they have fleas.
Yeah.
When the woodchuck takes over, don't the fleas go there?
Probably, yeah, you'd think they'd be happy to have a woodchuck too. Although I wonder in the wintertime when that woodchuck hibernates, their body temperature drops so much. I mean, I don't know, I'm speculating. I wonder if the fleas might not like that.
Do foxes hibernate?
No, foxes are active all winter long. Yeah, they're working hard. To help them, they grow in a thick winter coat so a little better insulated. And in a lot of ways, hunting in the winter can be easier for predators. Because think of that rabbit and that mouse that are trying to find their food. That's a lot harder in the wintertime. You're more likely to run across an animal that's maybe made some bad choices and gotten itself injured, or maybe it's struggling and a little bit more desperate to find food. And that's opportunity for a predator. And foxes are opportunistic. They're looking for that chance. This, of course, is also a time where that fox starts to run into trouble. If it's running into trouble, we're going to see them poking around the backyard looking for those chickens and things like that. But for the most part, unless something bad happens to it, winter's a pretty good time for foxes. Yes?
We used to have a bird feeder that hung on the tree, so they would come up and I guess they were getting little creatures down
Yeah.
there. But as soon as you turned that light on, they were so fast.
Yep.
They were gone.
Yeah, they'll eat the bird seed too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they'll eat the bird seed as well. I have a friend of mine has a running, she has the Facebook page, and she's always putting up pictures of gray foxes that come and lick up the bird seed under her bird feeder.
I tried to follow it tracks one morning.
Yeah.
And it just walked me around in circles. I never did find it.
Sure.
Just in circles.
Oh, neat. Yeah, but that's kind of what they're famous for, right? Those stories of the fox hunters who the fox runs down into the stream and it comes up and it circles back around, and they're just running in circles trying to find this fox. And they're really, any animal really, they can learn too. So maybe that fox, especially if it was taken off like a shot when that light came on, it might have learned that light comes on and that house down the road, that guy took a shot at me. So the light comes on and the fox goes, I gotta get out of here. And then you come out, the fox is like, uh-oh, she's after me. Let's pull out the tricks, and off they go. Once they learn, if they have the chance to learn, they're really good at avoiding us. Yeah. Sir?
How do foxes react or interact with raccoons?
How do foxes interact with raccoons? Probably as little as possible. No, seriously, raccoons they're way tougher than we ever give them credit for. Oh yeah, I mean the raccoon skull's out in the car. But really a raccoon skull next to a gray fox skull, it's thicker. The canine teeth are just as long. They're more omnivores, so they have flat teeth in the back, but it really looks like a little mini bear skull. And they can outweigh a fox pretty significantly. So I would, but at the same time, that fox is big enough that the raccoon probably doesn't want to mess with the fox either. You think of wild animals, we always have that 9-year-old boy mentality, right? What happens if they fight?
Yeah. Who would win?
Yeah, who would win in a fight? The mountain lion or a grizzly bear? And the way they win is by not fighting.
Yeah.
If you get injured because you decided, I bet I can take that raccoon, and you end up getting torn up by a raccoon, that's it. Nature plays rough.
Well, what would go after foxes? I mean, possibly a coyote?
Yeah, coyotes will eat them, bobcats will eat them, fisher will probably eat them. Yeah, and when they're young, they have to worry about a lot of things. Other foxes, red foxes will take out gray foxes.
But adults
Yeah.
can still be
Yeah, right. And you get into other parts of the country, you run into wolves and mountain lions and other big cats and stuff.
Bears.
Bears. If a bear could catch it, yeah, a bear would definitely take it. Yeah. And really, we are probably the most dangerous thing for a fox. Between cars and changing the habitats and just going out and shooting them and trapping them, we're probably a fox's biggest threat.
Are there seasons for fox hunting or trapping?
Yeah, sure. We're in it right now. It goes from October to February. So actually it stops right around breeding season, so that you're not interfering with pregnant moms or foxes who have pups back in the den. Because they need dad too. It's not, mom doesn't have her pups and dad goes off and does other things. He's working hard to keep food for mom and the pups when they're young, and then when the pups get old enough they don't need mom with them, they need mom out hunting to provide the increased amounts of food they're eating. So it's a partnership, it's teamwork. And so Fish and Wildlife isn't going to interfere with that. So the seasons end.
How many in the litter?
Usually like 4 or 5. They don't all make it. The first year is the worst year for foxes. And the more food they have, the more pups they'll have. So if you've got a mom who's really struggling when she's pregnant, barely getting enough food, she might not have any pups. She might only have 1. You know, it's family planning is a predator thing. You know, if they can't provide enough food for the pups, they don't have them.
Smarter than people.
Yeah, well. Again, not going to touch it. So you guys are starting to liven up. That's good. I was worried we were going to end half an hour early. What else we got? More questions? I'll put up the inspiring picture for the end when I'm going to look for questions. You know, foxes I mean, these pictures, if you have a chance, check these pictures out. Available by donation, right? Is that right? Is that correct?
Yeah, please help
Yeah.
yourself to a photo. Donation.
But you know, these are animals they're a beautiful animal. I mean, really, even if you hate them, they're beautiful. You got to admit, they're a pretty animal, and they're very accessible. They can live in our backyards. And if we don't mess with them, they can live there very happily. And hopefully they don't mess with us too much. The red foxes especially get pushed into town by the coyotes. You know, people see now, I mean, I don't know, I would have to guess some of you folks maybe lived here for a while. Do you see more foxes, maybe not right now, but say 10 years ago than you did 40 years ago? Maybe, yeah, all right, never mind.
Seems like there's more foxes around now
Yeah.
than what we saw earlier.
Yeah, it's some of that. The thought is that the coyotes have pushed them all out of the woods. You know, it's easier for them to live in town or in your backyard than it is for a coyote to live there. So the coyote pushes them in here, and then they're safe from the coyote. Not that coyotes aren't walking down these streets in the middle of the night, but it's
Walk by the house in the middle of the day, 10:30
Yeah.
in the morning.
Ah.
You're not scared of anything.
yeah,
They're pretty bold.
yeah.
I've read somewhere that a fox can outrun a coyote.
I bet in the short, probably if they've got room to maneuver, yeah. Because the coyotes are really fast, though. They're one of the fastest land animals in North America. They hit like 40, 45 miles an hour. Well, I don't know. That's what they say.
The foxes have great hearing, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, all the senses. I mean, great sense of smell, great hearing, great night vision. Color vision, probably not as good as ours. Detail vision, not as good as ours. But that's pretty much true of every mammal. You know, we're pretty spectacular in the color detail vision, for us mammals anyway.
You mentioned parasites.
Yeah.
Now, how would this look on I happened to had some pictures taken, I didn't bring them, with a red fox.
Uh-huh.
I mean, half of the body was hairless.
Oh. Yeah. That could be mange. I mean, who knows? I mean, but that could be mange. Yeah, and that's awful. That's bad for the fox. Yeah.
So, how long do foxes live?
Foxes will live if they make it through that first year, they might live 6 to 8 years in the wild. There's wildly different opinions on how long they can live in captivity. From 5 years to 20 years, which is, I don't know, it's such a wide range, I would not dare hazard a guess beyond to say they probably live longer than they do in the wild, just because it's just so much easier. You know, you've got a vet and you don't have to worry about food, so it's a lot easier to live in captivity for animals who are able to do it. Yeah. So, that was our quick and dirty introduction to Vermont foxes. Any other questions or stories or anything? Yeah.
I was hoping we could hear those fox sounds.
Yes. me too.
Oh, yeah. The fox sounds. And we are taking some. Yes, that's a wood turtle. I don't know why. That's not the picture I'm looking at. It's the other half of the screen. So I don't know how well you guys can really hear this. Here's a bark. And this is a sound you'll be hearing soon. I mean, this is something that this is a mating season sound.
So that's an adult.
Yeah, that's an adult. And it's this weird noise. And this has got a bunch of different calls. They'll scream. Here's a scream. Oh, it sounds almost the same, actually.
Almost sounds like a great blue heron.
You know, they'll make. Here's a couple foxes fighting. And the fighting it's more establishing dominance than trying to kill each other, you know. But imagine waking up in the middle of the night to this going on behind your house. There's I don't know if you're gonna be able to hear the chirp. If you can hear that, it's like a little chirp sound. It's a hungry baby. And these are from a fox sanctuary in England, but same sounds that we'd be hearing from our foxes. Anyway, I thought I wasn't going to do this, so that's why I don't have speakers, and hopefully you guys could hear that okay. Yeah, good, good. Some crazy sounds.
Does it? Yeah. Kind of creepy.
Oh, it's in. We had foxes making that sound behind the house a couple years ago. I'd never heard it before. I had no idea what it was. Luckily, you know, the internet, you can find out anything. And yeah, it was foxes making that yow kind of weird. See, I tried to make the sound, making that weird sound out in the woods.
It sounds a little bit like a deer snorting.
Yeah, kind of the same kind of breathiness to it. Yeah, yeah.
But coarser, raspier.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of weird sounds out there. Porcupines scream, yeah, owls, all kinds of stuff making weird noises.
I was walking one night in the back pasture, and it was turning into apple trees. And gosh, I could hear a sort of a sing-song mumbling. And, you know, it was two porcupines and a small apple tree.
Yeah.
And they were talking to each other. And it was quite dark, and they paid no attention to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
I could just touch them easily, you know.
Yeah.
But it was quite musical.
Yeah, there's a woman down in Marlborough, a wildlife rehabber named Patty Smith, who has a relationship with a wild group of porcupines. And she'll go in and film them and record them, and they make some incredible, like all these little sing-songy noises you're talking about. It's really neat, yeah. Yeah. A relationship with wild porcupines. That's a thing, yeah.
Now, is the silver fox, is that a variation of the gray fox or the red fox?
Red fox, yeah.
fox?
It's a color variation on the red fox, yeah. And you know, a lot of, like with the fur trade too, they breed for these color variations. So you get like a silver fox coat, or, you know, that's all just, and you can see it in the wild, but like the fur trade, if you see that, it's probably from a fur farm fox, just to get enough to make a coat. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for hanging out with us here. Please come up and take a closer look at the furs if you like. Any other questions? Look at the pictures. There's food. Grab some food. And yeah. I'm going to run out to the car and grab them because I forgot them in the car. Yeah, and come down and visit the museum. Yeah, I'll come back in and let you know what the ice situation is. But yeah, definitely come down and visit us at the museum if you get a chance. It's yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, well, thank you.